This is going to be an introduction to UVs, and UVs are the way images get mapped onto geometry. We're going to start out with a simple primitive and then another primitive. Both are polygon planes, except one is going to be created uniformly, meaning when I click on here, we get this polygon plane that is 1 by 1 in ratio. Let me scale it up because scaling won't matter for this part. I'm going to reduce the number of polygons in it because polygons are related to the UVs. For every UV that exists, there's a polygon, or for every polygon that exists, there's a UV, or should be a UV. That's how images get mapped onto these objects. Let me put this one aside. Zip. Let me create an interactive polygon plane, which just means going under Create Polygon Primitives, clicking on Interactive, and now when I click on this icon, I must draw out my polygon plane. Let's make it look like this for a ratio. All right, I'm going to apply a shader to both of them. Right click, assign new material. It's going to be Lambert. I'm going to call this Smile. That's going to be the name of the material. For the color slot, going way down to the right side for input node, I'm going to input and connect it to the create render node, a file. Now I'm going to pick a file by clicking on the browser icon, browsing to my source images folder within this project. I'm selecting the file.jpg, clicking on open, and there's a smile. If you don't see the smile, that means the display is just for shading. 4 is for wired frame, 5 is shaded, 6 is shaded with any textures. And you have to do that for every viewport if you want to see shading, and then press the 6 key. Going back to this viewport, spacebar, see it full. I'm going to assign the same material to here. Right click, assign existing material, and I'm picking that smile shader that was just created, the Lambert. Whoa. Well, why? It will make sense when you see the image. The image is a square. And in Maya, square worked out. Square equals square. Square doesn't equal rectangle. So what do? This is where the UV mapping comes in. UVs, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, for every face there's a UV. And the goal of UV mapping is to describe this object from a perspective that an image, which you can think as wallpaper, can be placed all across this model and look good. Selecting this object, I'm going to right click and go to the face level. Then UV editor. This is UV editor. It's focused in on the smile. I need to see more of a smile. I need to see the eyes. But when I rescale this UV, even though it looks like a face, actually it's a UV because that's the way UVs work. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to the vertex level on this UV. I'm going to select this vertex and shift click on this vertex and then pick up the move tool, which is the W key. And I'll lift up my 2 vertices, which is rescaling the UV. So we accomplished fitting this image on here, but the ratio's off. We want our image to just look like a non-distorted smiley face, even though it's a rectangle. This becomes a problem because our image is like this. I do have an image that's a better fit for this UV, and that will be the solution that we'll conclude with in this video. For now, let's continue exploring what we can do with this UV. I'm selecting the face out here, and what if I start to scale this face? Hey, it's looking better. We could do it. Oh, what's happening there? Oh, wait, there's more than one smile. UVs repeat, and this is how you can create seamless textures projected onto your models. If you don't want this UV to repeat, there's 3 things we could do about it. 1, we could crop this model, but that would destroy our model, so that's not an option. We don't want to destroy our model. The next thing we could do is, let me close the UV editor. If I go to the smile texture and I follow the inputs again, here I could replace the image. We're not up to that yet, but this tab, Place 2D Texture. This has some options for coverage, rotation of the image, and the repeat of the UV. However, the reason why this is not an option in this case, it's because these textures are connected. When I right-clicked Assign an Existing Material Smile, we're using the same shader for each object. So on this level, the shader level, anything I change here, such as coverage 2, changes all of our objects in the scene. So this wouldn't be a good option if we're reusing the shader. If the shader was unique, because create a new shader for this object, even if it's using the same image, then using the parameters here would be helpful. Let me go over a few. You can rotate the UVs. I'm not interested in doing that. We could deal with the repeat pattern. If I do 2 by 2, oh, I get a lot more of these smiley faces. And what's happening and why is it repeating? If I go under UV editor, this image is in this region. And this represents all the repeating regions as well. So in a way, we're just scaling down these regions when we're repeating it. So that doesn't help. What would help is coverage. If I did coverage at 0.5 by 0.5, well, now we got a small little smiley critter. We got 2 of them, but that's okay. I know that now if I go back to the UV editor, and I scale down this UV, just fit my smiley critter, everything will work out. By picking up the move tool, and I'm going to move here. But the problem is, when I did coverage, and I said coverage is only half, there's no other material under here. So this wouldn't be good for just fitting this one image onto this plane. Also, by changing coverage, it affected objects that also had the same shader applied to it, the smile shader. So this isn't necessarily a good way to go for this example. Let me go back to my smile, follow the input of the color swatch, go back to place textures, and under coverage, 1 by 1 again. The best we could do with this one, let me deselect everything, select this one, right click, face mode. We could place it. And any scaling that's happening, if we're very careful, we might be able to get away with it. Well, almost, up into this area. If we started scaling the other way, it will eliminate the other smiles. But now we're distorting the image projected onto this object. So that's not the option. So in this case, the very good option would be, since we control the art, make art that fits roughly the ratio of our object. Doesn't have to be precise. It's okay to be a little off, but roughly a rectangular image versus this square image. Using this rectangular image, I'm going to close this. Let's go replace it here and here, and we're going to see just some distortion over here, but that will be easier to fix than distortion on this one. You'll see this play out in a moment from now. Going back to the object level, I'm selecting the smile shader, which is applied to both of these objects. Clicking on the input for color swatch, going to the file tab because I want to replace this file. Currently, it's this square ratio. I'm going to replace it with this rectangular ratio. Click the folder icon, select the other image, and all right, we got extra room off on this side, and this ratio is a little off, but we could fix this. And we'll fix this one first by selecting the face, UV editor. Since the face is already selected, and I picked up the scale tool, now I could scale this UV to bring the image into proportion. Now it's the right ratio for this one. UVs are per object. To fix the UV on this object, I have to select this object. And just to make sure I know I could go forward here, I'm just going to click off, deselect everything, and then reselect here. Go to the face level here, just to make sure I'm not accidentally also selecting these UVs. To fix this object, I just need to scale up the UV. And there it is. It's all fixed. Now, if you keep on scaling, you'll start to see squished smile faces coming on. But we don't care about that. We just wanted to see our one smile per object happening. Overall concept is, if we want an easier time with our UVs, the image level is very important. Having the right ratio of image, this versus this, will save us a lot of time when correcting UVs on our model. Strategize about it. Happy square blockheads throughout our 3D universe, then having a square image is fine. If we know sometimes our square blockheads will also be rectangular blockheads, it's a better concept to create rectangular art with extra image color that's empty, off to each side, knowing that when you get to the UV part, we always could just crop away that extraness, and we could use that extra space for resizing our UV to map our image.